right, everybody, welcome. It's Chris Petrie. Thanks again for coming by. We're going to do a beautiful drawing and painting of this gorgeous street scene in France. We have all of the great parts of a gorgeous painting on a street scene that you can have. We have all the beautiful buildings here. We have the street scene. We have the sidewalks, the street, the people enjoying the day out shopping in the shops, restaurants, bars. Everything is happening. It's fun. It's a beautiful day in France. Sunny, bright sunlight in this scene. We have the buildings, the figures. We have all kinds of interesting ornamentation with the lights, the chimneys up here, and the dormers on the rooftops. We have plantings. We have trees. Again, we have the beautiful French flag here on the buildings. We just have a lot of fun details that you can kind of put together in a painting, and maybe it's just a composition. Maybe it'll turn out to be a great finished painting for you, but it's a lot of fun. Join along with us here. I always mention, if you're brand new here, welcome. This is an extreme beginner series painting, which is basically we're going to have a more of a process of kind of breaking down everything so that you can clearly understand what we're doing here. We do that on all of our videos on my channel, but especially the extreme beginners, we're always going to have all the details covered for you so that you kind of can follow along with everything. It becomes easier to kind of manage your drawing and painting in watercolor if you kind of break it down into smaller parts and understand all the different parts that we're actually kind of creating in the painting. So we cover how you put together the sketch first, then how we're going to mix our colors, what kind of details are we going to put in the painting. We have our photograph right here on the side, so you'll see our phone and our photograph of what we're working from, and you'll kind of see how we kind of reduce things down to just some details and not get overwhelmed with too many details in this painting. So you'll see how we create all these beautiful effects on our watercolor painting as we go. So sit back, enjoy, and we'll get started in a second. All right, so we just saw the finished painting. Again, this is the first part of our video where we're going to start doing our layout of our pencil sketch and pencil drawing, and then we'll get right into the painting as soon as we're completed with this. But this does take a little while, so I'm hoping everyone's just going to buckle down and take some notes here if you need to, or if you just want to pencil draw along with me as we go. I'm actually thinking of getting a larger iPad to put onto camera for our drawings going forward, so that we have a larger photograph or subject matter to work from. I noticed that my cell phone's probably a little bit small. I think some of you that might have large screens might be able to see this really good, but I'm just kind of thinking that this might be a little difficult to see for some of you. So my goal is to eventually, over the next maybe month or two, purchase a iPad and then put the iPad on the table so it'll be a lot larger. So instead of a phone, it's going to be about maybe like a 6-inch by like 8-inch larger computer screen, so that we'll be able to see the drawings a little better. And I kind of like this method. I'm hoping you'll let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the comment section if you do like this setup here where we have the photo online or on camera like this. And then let me know if you think it would be better if we do have a larger iPad, which is, again, probably about this size here. This is like a pad of paper, but a little bit smaller than this, but not that much smaller than this. And then we can zoom out a little bit, so it might be like this big. And then we can keep the drawing over here to start with. And then once we start painting, obviously we have to make it a little bit smaller because we have to fit in our palette on this side. So, but for the drawing anyway, we'll try to keep a larger photograph going with a larger screen, computer screen or iPad screen. So I think I'm going to try that. We'll see how it works. You'll let me know in the comment section if it's better, if you think it works better. This one here, again, if you have a large screen like a TV screen or a large computer screen, you're probably okay. You'll probably be able to see this drawing okay. And so let's get started here. We have our, we always say let's put a mat on our paper first, just so we make sure we cover enough drawing and painting that we're going to be able to sit a mat on top of the painting. If it comes out good, then we're going to want to put this in a frame. So you need to put your mat on first, and then you put this into a frame, your painting. So what you do is you get those first little dots, very tiny little dots in the four corners of your mat. And then once you have that, you lift the mat off. You don't want to get paint all over it. And I set that aside over here in my studio. And that happens to be, let me just double check the measurements on that. Well, might as well just kind of do it right now as we're working. So this is a 11 by 14. So let's write it right on the mat here. Okay, so let's do that. 11 by 14. Okay, so that's our 11 by 14 mat. So again, I'll put that over here on the side of the studio, just so we have a, and then we know we put those little dots here, the 4 dots in the 4 corners of the window of the mat, and then we say we're going to go larger than that, at least a little bit larger. So now I'm going to find my ruler over here, it is, and then I'll just go out about like an inch on all sides. So an inch up and an inch out there, inch up and an inch out there, inch out and an inch down on the bottom, and then an inch down on the bottom and an inch over on the bottom there. And that gives us a little more room to make the painting a little bit larger. And then we'll just draw a pencil line right around, like so. And it can be a little bit larger than that if you want. I'm going to go a little larger than what I did here for my dots. And then we'll go like that, and we'll come up here and do the same thing. And right now my ruler is probably out of the camera, and some of this pencil line is out of the camera. And we could always zoom out just a touch so you can kind of see it. There we go. So now you should be able to see all the pencil lines. So I drew it larger so that when you put your mat back down on the painting, once you're done with your painting, you can move the mat around and kind of adjust it so that maybe, you know, if you had a little bit of an area over here you like a little better, you can slide your mat over and make it look a little more interesting if you move your mat up or down or to the sides. And you can also basically paint, right? You can skip this. I wouldn't skip this part of the process, though, of making sure you know where your mat opening is, the window of your mat. I wouldn't skip this step because it really is important. Because sometimes I've done it many times myself where I paint the painting way too big for a mat size or way too small. So and you don't always have to use a mat for your paintings too. So that's another thing. If you don't like to use mats, you don't have to use mats on your paintings. You can just paint the full size of your paper, everything, and then you just fit it into your frame of your painting. And if you have to trim a little off the edges, then that's fine. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but this seems to be the most kind of like fail-safe way to kind of get your drawing and your painting done, where you know you could put a nice mat around it. Mats always look excellent. It kind of borders the painting, makes it look great, and it also just kind of really blends in nicely with having a frame. Then you have your mat on top, and it kind of just makes a nice, really sharp edge around the whole painting, which looks really nice. So, okay, we have that part completed. Let's get our picture back up here. And then this is a friend of mine was just in France, and she gave me a photograph of one of the beautiful streets in Paris. French scene here, French beautiful street scene, figures. I think these are some of her friends and family. Actually, some of the people here might be her friends and family. They're checking out all the beautiful shops along these streets here in France. It's a beautiful place, and let's try this painting and drawing here. So the first thing I'll do is we'll do a light pencil sketch first to get the main, let's say the main overall large masses of what's in this painting. So here we see we have building rooftops converging down into the scene like this, on angles like this. And then in the distance here we have a building that we're kind of looking at in 2 dimensions. It's got a little bit of a 3-dimensional quality there, but mostly you could say that's kind of like a two-dimensional view there of this building in the distance at the end of this street here. And then here you have, again, these buildings that are angling down. The rooftops are angling down at sharp angles because of the, that's perspective. Whenever you have rooftops, they always angle steeply at the very tops of the roof, very high up. And then as you get down closer to the ground, those angles get smaller, or get less steep angles like this. So like this here, they get less steep, as you can see. So that's the painting, complete painting we want to do. You can also zoom in if you like. Sometimes people are going to like to zoom in and change their painting. Maybe we'd like to do this instead of the larger scene. This looks really nice too. So sometimes when you crop your photos, try cropping them in and out first. And this is what's great about having phones. It's incredible. You can take your phone and adjust the view of what you're looking at in your screen, and you can find different looks to your design that you're going to have for your drawing and your painting. So you might say, oh, I like it out a little further. It looks a little larger and interesting. Or maybe you want to zoom in. It looks a little more kind of like, it kind of looks more, I don't know, has more of a magic to it where, you know, you kind of close looking, zoomed in on the street, and you're kind of, it's more seeing the figures a little bit closer. This looks really nice too, but I think this is a good happy medium. The original photo was a little bit larger than this actually, so I did crop it down a little bit. All right, so now we have that. Let's take a look and we'll say this is the entire height of this scene. Halfway is the tops of these roofs here in this distant building in the end of this street area. So we could take our paper and say, okay, where's halfway? You could just take a basic halfway like this and put a mark there, or you could take your ruler too if you want and just check it out and say, well, let me see what halfway is about. Approximately, some of you, you're going to need to measure it just to be a little bit more careful. So 12 inches, so 6 inches is about here. I was a little bit off. It's a little higher. So then we just, you know, we could erase that. And then we can even look at the photograph and say, what is it in the photograph? 6 inches approximately is the photograph. And yes, it's a little bit above 3 inches. So a little bit above halfway is better. Just a touch above halfway is kind of looks just right. So that's going to be our building in the distance like that. Just a light pencil sketch there just to get that. And then if we look at the picture this way, going where are our verticals? So we have our horizontal, what I would call like a key point in your horizontal lines is this one here, and we just have that one. So that's about halfway for the roof. And you could even write down some notes if you want. Roof halfway there. And then you can come down and even say, all right, how much up from the bottom is the street here in the distance where that building is there? So you could say it's not quite a quarter of the way up the sheet, or, you know, a quarter way up this picture. So if this is 1/4 of the way up, halfway, 3/4, quarter of the way up. If this is half, this would be quarter. So this is like almost, you could say, 1/8 of the way up the picture, approximately, maybe a little bit higher than 1/8 of the way up. So I would call it about there. So then we can make another little bit of a pencil line here, just a little waypoint of where we have to be for that street at the end of the street there. And then what we can do is say, okay, those are our 2 horizontal main lines we want to make sure we have. We want to make sure we have the bottom of the building here at the end of the street, this beautiful street scene in France. Then we wanted to make sure we have the rooftop area there with those gorgeous chimneys. We're going to draw in those chimneys and that beautiful slate roof, and those got some beautiful dormers on there. We're going to have all kinds of cool stuff to draw in. We're not going to draw every detail though. That's the main thing here. You have to, you'll have to understand as we come along here in this painting is I'm not going to try to draw every detail. I'll try to pick up on some key details that we want to have in our painting, and that's up to you too. You're the artist. You'll pick out those key details you'd like to see in your painting, and then you'll put them in. And that's really good. So you have these 2 horizontal lines there. We have them here now, lightly penciled in just so we can have a couple points that we know we can use there. And then, like we said, this angle here of this rooftop is a little bit down from the top of the painting up here. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to say, okay, that's about 1/8 of the way, which is about here. 1/8 of the way is about, that's the quarter right there, the quarter, half, or 3/4, 7/8. If you're looking at it from, you can always look at your layout in your paintings as if you're measuring with your tape measure or your ruler. So you can say to yourself, if you're working in metric or in regular American Standard, you can break things down and just say to yourself, like, think of it as 1 inch is this whole section here. This is 1 inch, pretending it's 1 inch, just for you know, to give yourself some way of kind of scaling things. And you might say, all right, if this is 1 inch, and then we said how this is a 1/2 inch for the roof, that's the full inch to the top, this is the bottom. Then we said up here, this was about 1/4 of an inch, and then we said this street, bottom of the street's a little lower than 1/4 of an inch, so we call that about 1/8, or maybe a little bit above 1/8 of an inch. And then if we go all the way up top here, to this point here, up in the top of the very, very top of the right side of your border of your painting, your rectangle, that would be the top of this roof here. And that's about 1/8 down, about here. Not quite 3/4, which would be about there. It's about 1/8. And you just take a line and you just go down like that. And then you say that's about the building there. Then you come over here and you say, all right, this one here starts, this rooftop up here, wow, this is really a very, very, this is the closest wall of the building to us here in this photograph. These walls over here are a little bit further away. This is the closest one, and this was right up here at the top of the painting. It's about 1/4 of the way across. So if you have halfway here, and again, if you want to think of this as millimeters, centimeters, or if you want to think of it as an inch going across this way, well, if this is 1 full inch, this is 1/2 inch. This might be 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and this might be 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. And you make your hash marks like that across, and then you might say, if you start here, and you say, well, this is about, I would say that's about 1/4 of the way in. So this is about 1/4 of an inch. If you're using this as a whole inch scale, then this would be 1/4 inch. And then you come down like this, just a light sketch again. And you just notice how this line is almost completely vertical. It's just a touch on an angle like that. So this top of this building is just a touch on an angle like so. And then once it gets to about where the rooftops are here, it goes down pretty much straight, like this. Like that. And then already we can kind of feel like, wow, we've really got this, most of this right here, we have this really buttoned down beautifully with our sketch. Now the only thing too, let's get these angles in for the street and the curbs and the sidewalks. Pretty straightforward here. We're going to see that this curb line here is completely vertical straight. So we're going to want to make that same line straight here. So you see it's straight there. You could take your pencil and even just say, okay, that's straight. Let's bring it over here and then put our pencil. Okay, that's straight there. And it's a little bit in on this building here. So you just slide this over like this and say, all right, that's straight like that. And then we just come down here, and then we notice that it kind of curves over this way. Doesn't have to be perfect, but that's about where that goes. There. Around that way, like that. Then this curb line and sidewalk over here on this area of these buildings on the right-hand side, the angle comes across this way. So you can take your pencil and almost hold it and say, okay, let me just hold that same angle and set it down right like that and say, okay, that's about the angle. Like that. And then it curves over this way too. Now you could say, let's try to be a little, let's keep it pretty accurate. Let's do that. All right, so we'll make that little bit of a angle across this way and then an angle over here. And that kind of leads us into the scene. And that looks pretty good. And then if you want to, if you see anything that you think might need to be touched up, I think I need to make this street a little bit further into the distance here. I think I went a little bit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this street a little further like this. Okay, now we have this in light pencil sketch. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. We did a lot of work here getting our layout correct, making sure that we have these large blocks of these buildings and these shapes. Basically, If you want to look at it, we could look at this as basic shapes. But we really want to get these basic shapes of the street scene good and solid and looking correct, because we are working from this photograph right from the start. And that's why I did that light pencil line. We're going to go over this with darker pencil line in just a second, but I just want to kind of see, I just want to maybe just kind of make a point of kind of, if we have our rectangle like this, and we want to make sure, and I have to be really careful not to put pencil markers on my paper here, on my finished painting. So here we said this line comes down like this, comes down like that, and then it kind of trails over this way. And then this building here was kind of in the distance, some chimneys and interesting stuff there. This building rooftop comes this way, like that, on an angle here, and then it comes down like that, and then it'll go across like this and like that. And that might be the distant building, where the building is over here with this interesting doors and windows and things like that. And then we have our figures here. We have some figures in the street and so forth. But you can kind of see how this is like the main, these are the main really key angles we want to have correct when we're doing this, like this, and then like that, and then like this over here, the building over here, and some. Okay, so if we can get that correct, this large shape over here, this shape over here, basically three shapes, 1, 2, and 3. So these three kind of areas have to be really accurate before we start our painting. If you can get those 3 blocks of shapes just lightly penciled in correctly like that, or close to this, then you're going to be like set. Then when you go back in, you can add some details to those basic shapes, and then you'll be fine. And we'll show you how we're going to do all this. We're going to do some of these beautiful lamps. We're going to do the gorgeous French flag. We're going to do these distant chimneys on top of that. Beautiful rooftop over there. It looks like a slate roof, and some gorgeous dormers and big, beautiful windows, and great figures here, and people having a great time up and down the streets of the French streets, and the stores and the shops and the eateries and all the fun stuff. This is a great painting to do. It's so much fun. I know you're going to have a great time as we continue on here. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll start our darker pencil lines. I'll put those in, and then we're again going to have fun with this. We're not going to paint every detail. You'll see how we're going to pick out some key details, put those in, and that's all we're really going to need to make it like a beautiful painting. And you'll pick out the ones that you want. As far as when you're going to do this painting at home, you're in your studio, you're going to pick out some of those key details you would like to see in yours, in your painting. You might use mine to start with, and then you might do it a second time, the painting, and do something a little different. But you'll see that it's really going to be fun, and we're going to do it in a loose way, fun way, and we're not going to, again, get bogged down in all these tremendous details you do see here in this photograph. We're going to actually key in on a few that we like and put those in, and we're really going to have a great time doing it. All right, so let's come back in just a second, and we'll, again, continue on, and eventually we're going to get to the painting. Probably in about another 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we'll be creating our washes on here. We're going to do this with alla prima washes. And so we won't be doing tons of water. We're just going to use enough water to get the paint on there. And we're going to paint everything all at one time. And we'll start with the darks and work our way through the painting with the darks first. And then we'll put on some gorgeous other washes, like the light yellow ochre washes on the buildings, and the blue and purplish sky, and the gold colors of all these buildings, and some of the beautiful figures here with blue jeans on, and t-shirts and dresses and all kinds of cool stuff here. So we'll get into all the details, even some trees here, and some interesting doorways, and some street signs in the back there, and lamps and cool stuff. There's some really nice details here with some windows on the left side over here. We can get some of these fun details in, but not go overboard and become too, bogged down with the details of this type of a painting. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, we're getting started again. Let's begin here. I would say I'm going to probably start over here in the center of the painting where this beautiful dormers and chimneys are on this rooftop here. It's like a beautiful, looks like a hip roof with maybe a flat roof on top. Let's take a look and see here. So what I'll do is I'll just start out here and I'll try to get the darker pencil line in so you can see that. So basically I'm going to just contour. I'm going to contour draw this, which means I'm going to start in one place as I draw and then just start drawing through the painting. And my main goal is when I'm contour drawing, and I've done videos on contour drawing, and you can always look those up and just type in Chris Petrie contour drawing, and you'll see maybe 5 or 6 or 10 videos I've done on contour drawing. And I'll do more videos on it too as well in the future. But it's really basically a fun way to draw. It's like taking a trip through your picture where you basically start in one spot, usually in a centrally located area, and then you just kind of start drawing in one location and you have your preliminary sketch done like we did first here. That way you have your main areas that you know you sort of always have to kind of like aim for, so to speak, so that you're not going to be going off on the beaten track too far when you're doing your contour drawing. But basically the contour drawing is you're just carefully looking back and forth from your paper to your drawing, to your photograph, or to your subject matter. Maybe you're sitting here in France in a nice beautiful bench or chair and you're drawing this scene out here in France. You know, you would be doing the same thing. You'll carefully look at things as you go, and you go slow and keep looking. Okay, how far am I going with that line? Okay, now I got to stop with this line and go up a little bit. And then you just kind of work your way around the painting and you stay in one close area, and you'll see how I'm going to work this. Now I'm going to do the chimneys and the dormers and this rooftop area right here first, and then we'll move on to a different area. But the thing is to try to kind of see everything carefully and take your time. No rushing on this here. Let's just keep ourselves focused. So I'm going to go right across here with that one line. That looks like that's the cornice of the building, and there's a gutter there in the cornice. And then there's another line across here, so I'm making 2 lines like that. Then I'm going to come across back here, and then I notice the roof goes up on an angle like this, and then it stops there and it turns this way. And then there's a chimney up here, like this. And that chimney looks very much like maybe like, instead of a chimney, I'm going to think of it as like a tissue box. It looks like a tissue box maybe. And it comes across like this. And then I'm going to come across here with this line there. And then I notice that this building over here is sort of merging with this rooftop. So there's another, looks like a chimney on this building up here, like this. And again, this is where you use these light pencil lines you put on the painting before. You're using those to sort of keep yourself on track with the rest of what you're drawing. And then this one goes here across this way. And then this one goes up this way, like that. And if I come back down here, this is another part of the parapet walls of the rooftops over here. Like that. That. Okay. Okay, so now we have those. Like that. And that doesn't seem like an important detail, but I'd rather put that up higher where I saw that. And then this is over here. And that's, again, the same thing. These are roof areas. Crickets in these roofs here. Or dormers. And then, so now we're going to come back down here. We kind of trailed off away from where we started here, but we don't want to go too far from here. Let's come back to this point here, because it's always good to keep that rule in your mind of when you're contour drawing. Definitely try to stay in one area and kind of develop most of what you're going to do there, and then move on from that point. It definitely will help. So now over here, I'm going to notice that these dormers on this roof over here are about halfway up from the bottom of the gutter line in the cornice, like that. And then this dormer over here has an eyebrow trim or eyebrow roof on the top, barrel roof. I think that looks like a barrel roof maybe, or an eyebrow. And then we're going to get that sort of there. And if you see that, if you don't see lines or something, if you don't see details, leave them out too. That helps you to leave out some details, because sometimes we get overburdened with too many details. If you see things and then you're drawing and you don't see any details on something, just leave it out too as you're drawing. Don't try to make believe stuff. I mean, once in a while do some make believe things. Again, get creative. Sometimes you have to add in some things if you want to, but I would say if you're drawing certain things sometimes, and if you don't see, like I'm not seeing many details in this photograph at the bottom here of these dormers, because the light's kind of bright. I noticed the sunlight is pretty bright in this area of the painting right here. I also noticed I might have made this too large. Let's keep this a little smaller, like that. All right, so now we have that, and then we have this roof here. It's like this, and then we have about this point here. There is another dormer over here, and that's similar. It's the same as these dormers here. And those are sort of like that. They're kind of over there. And then up here we have more chimneys. And these are a little smaller. They're getting further in the distance. And then another one over here. And you can paint in some details too. Don't feel like you have to do every detail. A couple chimney pots on tops of these. Like that. Okay, so now we're developing this one area, which is really coming along nicely. Let's maybe let us go this way. And maybe we'll just bring this really lightly down, a light pencil line, like that, just so we get that. Let's do the windows here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 floors. So this is 4 stories, this building here in the distance. That's where we can also use our kind of like scale and say, okay, if this is 4 stories, let's divide this into 4 areas, 4 stories. So we go halfway for 1, and then halfway for 2, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have an even number of floors in a building, you just divide by 2 or 4. You can just say, if it's 4 stories, you could say halfway between here is 2 stories. So 1, 2 is halfway, and then 3 and 4. And then you just do a light pencil line so only you can see it. And this way you can get your windows in over here. These are large, beautiful windows. They come all the way up like that. And I'm going to do them very lightly. And there's maybe some space between them like that. And I'm just going to do them very, very down here. I'm not going to put too much because there's figures in the street area here. And then over here we have, you can see about 3. And I'm kind of, you can see I'm going a little quicker now because this is not a main focal point for me. I'm kind of, like what I was saying before, is you're going to make the things that are kind of detailed for yourself in your painting. Those are the things you'll spend a little more time on. Some other things you'll kind of notice you might not want to spend as much time on them, and you might just want to have some detail but not as much. I like this section over here with this rooftop here with the chimneys and the gray slate roof and these dormers, these beautiful dormers and the chimneys. That's something I really keyed in on, and I spent a little more time there. Now these windows here, I really enjoy windows a lot, but I don't think it's not as interesting maybe, and let's not try to make everything look as interesting. Let's key in on whatever you want to key in on, as far as what details you might want to make sure you capture in your... So now I did light windows there. And then I will now, I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating the figures here. So let's take more time and do the figures. So when I look at this here, the figures are, let's do the first figure here. So this first figure is just a little bit back from the sidewalk and curb area, and then this figure is going to be quite large. It's going to be here to halfway up the first floor is the first figure. So I'm going to basically do the carrot shape for my figure. First, I'm just going to draw like a carrot shape. And basically, I'm just going to draw a head, shoulders, and kind of taper down like that, kind of like a carrot. I know it might sound a little bit silly, but if you kind of keep your figures looking like a carrot, sort of like that, you can kind of make it a little larger at the bottom where this pants are, or the legs, and maybe some shoes. But if you kind of can visualize, the shoulders are wider, and then the body tapers down close like a carrot almost, and then the head on top of that. So it's like kind of like a carrot with the head on top. And then you can do interesting things with, like, you know, someone with their hands in their pockets, or maybe they're holding a shopping bag too, like that. So you can develop that idea, but the cool idea is, and the interesting idea is, if you have that carrot idea first, then you really, it helps a lot to get that basic shape. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to try to get that basic shape of a carrot and then work from there. So let's do that. I'm going to draw the carrot shape first, and I'm going to make it lighter. I know I said I was going to draw darker, but I'm trying to... And then there's another distant figure over here. Now, what happens usually when you're seeing figures in a street scene or in a landscape scene, their heads are generally... the heads of and shoulders of the figure are going to stay the same height. And then the bottom of the figure shrinks and goes upwards, so that if this figure that I'm drawing now is further away from me and further down that street, the head will be a little smaller and the carrot shape's going to be a little smaller, like that. So you have the first figure's feet are there, and the first figure's head is there. Now this figure's further down the street. Their head's about the same height as this figure, except the body is smaller, or if you want to call it, the carrot shape is smaller. Just to get your shape in first, you'll paint in the details later. So you use your paintbrush to paint in the figure later, details of that. You just want to get that basic carrot shape in first before you to lay out where your figures are going to be. So you can kind of see now this figure in the distance, their feet and legs are higher up and their body is smaller. And that makes them look like they're going off into the distance, which looks really good. And then this figure here is looking up at the buildings, so you can kind of shape that one too, like that. And this figure here is about the same, is in the same area of the street as this figure. So they're going to be about the same size. Height-wise, they're going to be about the same height, and their legs are going to be at the same level, approximately. Pretty close. This other figure here is further down the street, so the shape of the figure shrinks down and looks smaller over down in the further part of the street. And then you can again, with your paintbrush, you can add a little more dynamics to your figures. Maybe make them a little more, have like a little more movement to them, where they look like they're maybe bending or turning or having a little bit of different looks. But for right now. And we're going to do another figure here. And again, the height of the heads should all be the same, no matter how big your figures are. So if you're making figures way far in the distance, all the way at the end of the street, please, please, please make the heads at the same height. And I'll even do that. I'll make one more figure down here at the end of the street, like that. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures. This one at the end of the street, very, very small because they're all the way far away, but all the heads are all at the same height. So your heads stay at the same height of your figures, and they just get smaller, though, as they go into the distance. So your most distant figure is going to have a smaller head and body shape, but yet it's still going to be at that same height. The heads are going to be all at the same level. So if you drew a line across your painting, you can even do that. You can draw a very, very light pencil line across your drawing. Whenever you start your first figure, you draw your first figure, and then you draw a level line across. You could even use a ruler very, very lightly, though, and say, okay, that's my level line for my first figure. You go across. Then you just tell yourself, you can make tiny little figures if you want, and medium-sized figures, and tall figures, and even ones larger than these, as long as you keep all the tops of the heads at that line, that level line. And that's all you have to remember. And that way your picture will always look really good. It'll always look like you're standing there looking at this scene, and it'll look realistic and real, because that's in real life, that's how you're going to see everything. Your eye is going to see everything at the same level going across. At street level. If you were standing looking out a window, it would look different. But if we're standing in the scene, like maybe painting this or taking a picture, then it's going to follow that rule of what we just explained. So, wow, there's a lot of stuff. But I want to make sure you kind of see what I'm doing here and get the ideas of how I'm developing everything. And then, you know, getting all of the proper layout first with our shapes of our buildings. And now we started our contour drawing, getting in whatever details you want to get into this painting. And I'm so far really interested in the top of this roof here and that distant building, and I'm really interested in these figures. So those are the two so far, the main things I'm looking to capture here really well, and that's my real focal points of the painting. And I'll have more focal points too as we go, but for right now, those are the two main we'll start out with, and then we're going to do a little more. So let's come back in just a second. I'm going to take another break, and then once I take another break, we'll just take for 5 minutes or so. And I always encourage everybody, please take breaks. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Thanks so much for coming by. It's great to have you here. You're in the right place at the right time for my channel, because we do everything watercolor. We do drawing. We do painting. We do both of the key, like I would say, building blocks of watercolor. You have to have your drawing first, and then you have to have your painting. And then you work on both of them equally, approximately. You know, you work on your drawings, and then you work on your paintings. And you keep doing both at the same time, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And you will get better at your watercolors, no questions asked. So that's what I'm really, my method of teaching videos here on YouTube is give you the basic methods and techniques. And every week, every video. And if you're doing the videos watching, if you're maybe some weeks you're too busy, you can't work along with me, or work along all of us here, all working together, obviously. If you can't work with us here and you can't maybe do the drawings and the paintings, well, at least if you're watching, you're learning a lot. That's the key. You're going to be learning so much just by watching the videos, hearing the terms, sitting back, relaxing, and really focused in on what we're doing here. And that'll help you. You kind of be like someone, like a great athlete that's watching films, like a football player or baseball player, hockey player. They sit there and they watch films for hours and hours of other teams playing and their own selves playing, and they learn from just watching. That's the key. Some of you might say, it's too boring, can't do it. No problem. Then you just grab your sketchbook and do some drawings and some, paintings, as many as you can do. Everyone learns differently, but I do try to cover like the real nuts and bolts of everything in watercolor. So you're going to get that here. And again, be right back. Just going to take a break, and then we'll get finishing up with our pencil drawing. I think we have two of the main things I wanted to cover, the rooftops and chimneys, and now the figures, and now we'll get some interesting lamps, some lights, street lights here, And we'll do a couple of the beautiful French flags over here on the right with some flowers along the, there's some beautiful people that have planters on the outsides of their windows. We're going to put those in, a few of those. Some trees down here at the end of the street, some gorgeous trees, some doorways, some windows, a little architectural details too as well. And I think by that time we'll definitely be ready to paint. And again, this is a longer video. Glad you're patient, glad you're willing to, take your time and work along with us here and kind of watch the whole process of what we're doing for a beautiful street scene. And I would say, you can always watch this video one time through, relax, maybe sit back in an easy chair, have some nice, a drink of your favorite tea, coffee, nice ice water, iced tea, whatever you like to drink, some popcorn, whatever. You sit back, relax, and just watch this video. Take your time soaking in all the information. Then maybe you come back a second time, and that's when you work along with the video. And if you've watched it one time full through, it'll really be a lot easier the second time you go through to do this. So what I would advise is, because we're taking quite a long time to do this whole process of this street scene, please don't worry about it. Maybe watch the whole video full through once and then come back and then work with it. And that might work for you. Maybe you don't need to do that too. Not sure. But this is an extreme beginners video too as well. So we're going to use our standard prang palette when we create this painting. So that's another thing too. That's going to be fun. This is a video where as long as you're getting the basics of the drawing down, okay, then you can just jump right in and grab the paints and the brushes and get started. Okay? All right. We'll be right back. All right, we are getting started here again. We're taking a little break, no problem. Let's take some breaks once in a while. And I know I'm driving some of you crazy by doing all of these details here, but we have to do them to get to the end result. So we are now at the point where we have, again, our two main focal points that I like personally, and I think hopefully you'll use mine at first, and then maybe you can do this painting a second time or a third time and choose different things you want to key in on. But to keep the video somewhat, within 2 hours, we'll kind of keep with just maybe 3 or 4 different things we want to key in on. So first was the roof over here with the chimneys. I have that in. The figures are awesome. I wanted to have those in. And then now we can do a little bit of the architecture over here just to capture some of it on the right side. So we were up here on the rooftops. We have the rooftops here good. The dormers are good. Chimneys are good. We came up here. We did this chimney. A little bit large. I think I made that a little bit larger than I should have. But I'm going to leave it like that and just see if we can get away with it. And then we're going to have another bit of architecture up here. We have some beautiful cornices above these sections of walls here. So I'm going to try to, again, I'm drawing some vertical lines. You can get a ruler. Occasionally it helps to have a ruler if you can. I had a half-size ruler somewhere, and again, I've misplaced some things here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, well anyway, if you want to get a couple plumb lines on your paper, just so you don't go off on any kind of major angles like this or this, you can just take a light, super light pencil line in an area that you might be working in and just kind of put a light pencil line that only you can see. And you can put a couple of those lines in. And then too, with those help too if you're going in later to paint in some details. Those are really helpful for that. So if you just kind of put in some super light pencil lines, just so you can see them. And again, later if you're going to take your brush, you'll use your paintbrush and paint in a couple lines here and there just for some interesting effects and some architectural features that you might want to capture. So I'm going to do these here. I'm just going to fade that in like so, not get too carried away with too much details there. And then up here I can see that this has another cornice there that comes in like this, like that. And this comes in like so, and then there's another section of rooftop there. So you can almost really have a great time with just capturing a few details here and there in the painting. So I'll start out with some details up here on this cornice up here. Like this. Same thing. Like that. And then I'll just leave that there. And this is sort of like where one section of the building is sort of, it sets back from the other one a little bit, like there's a wall that protrudes out forward, and then another wall sets back from another facade wall that's forward. So they just have features on the architecture here that kind of make it beautiful and looking like it's has some movement to it, some dynamics. Anyone can just put a wall up and that's it, with no interesting features on it. So, but this here is incredibly detailed, looks great. And again, have fun with this, don't stress over it. And then there's some windows over here and some plantings. I'll capture a few of those. And then those windows here, if I say this is about halfway on the photograph, that's where this point here lands, where this floor of the building is there. So that's about just a little bit above there. Okay, so some of my drawings are not perfectly, my drawing is not perfect, and that's the thing too. Don't worry if not everything is looking just like it is in this photograph. Try to get things somewhat close. Close is good. So I'll get a line going there. And actually that line starts here. And I'll erase those lines there. Don't be afraid. You grab your kneaded eraser when you need to. Again, I'll take my ruler. I'm going to get some vertical lines like that. I think I'm pretty much going to call it a day on these, some of these other features over here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put some plantings over here. Like that. Some plantings over here. There we go. You scribble in some beautiful plantings that are on these windows. All right, now let's continue. Let's details here, details here. Let's just get a few of these lines in about top of that first floor. This line comes across there. That's all I'm going to do is a line there. And you're going to see this is just the composition to have fun, practice all the techniques and methods that we know we need to kind of get familiar with in watercolor. So this is not going to be a finished painting at all. This is kind of just practicing what we do, laying out our painting, making sure we get our shapes, our major large shapes in our drawing in first correctly, like we talked about. And now we're going to key in on some fun spots that we want to kind of, you know, get involved with and have some fun with the details of. And so we're doing that. We are getting some lines in, vertical lines, just to make sure when we're painting we have some other information to work with. And so that's fine there. Then we could take some lines here for some windows. Like that. I'm just going to do a line there like that. That's good. All right, fine. Again, you can tell I'm not going to get too worried about things here. These are the undersides of the cornice on this building up here. We're looking up almost. So the camera is capturing the very, very undersides of the cornices on these roofs over here. So that's all I'm going to do is get a few of those in like that. And then now my first lamp, we're going to do a fun, first I'll get my vertical line here. That. Just want to get a vertical line in there like so. And then over here, let's do our cool, interesting looking lamp there. And that's that's right around where the chimneys are, the same height as the chimneys. So I'll do it right around, a little bit lower. Again, not everything's going to work out perfect every time. So there we go. That's basically like a rectangle with a little bit of an angle to it. A rectangle with a little bit of an angle. And then the lamp goes up like so. Then it's got a dot, like a sphere on top. Then it goes up. Then it has a straight back that way. Straight down this way. How far does it go down? Not that far. Like that. About to where the middle of the glass is on the lamp. That's where the bracket ends. And then you have your bracket there. Like that. Okay, so that's one lamp. I talked about my details that I want to see. Well, this is one of them. I like the lamps, so I'm going to have my lamp there. Then there's a few more lamps that are over here too. This one is about right here where this fourth floor is. There's a lamp there, but it's much smaller. So we'll just do the same thing we did here, just we'll make it smaller, that's all. And that goes in like that. Same kind of idea there. And then even another one smaller yet, just below this one. So those are some of the details I'm keying in on. The lamps, 1, 2, and 3. There might be another one further in the distance about here. Kind of cool to do them like that too, very, very small. It gives you really a beautiful feeling of depth in the painting, like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from there we're good. Now, I did notice this building kind of goes like this. It goes across here like that. Okay, so now we have figures, we have lamps. I think I'm going to call that pretty much good. Maybe we'll get one more. We'll get another, that looks like a small cornice by a window. Or that could be a windowsill. I'll just draw that in. You know, not too carefree. I draw it carefree right now. I'm not getting too busy with it. And then over here there's a window. Let's do a window or two. These are really awesome windows. Look how they're like really carved out in the building, like deep. Like this. And then you can see the window like that. Great look to that. And then another one over here. Where would this one be about approximately? All right, that window there is about a little bit. All right, so I'm already perhaps off a little bit on my scale on a few things, but not to worry again. Okay, so now there we go. A couple of windows up here. Then we have a block over here. That's at the height of that bottom So this is the lowest, the most, this is like the very first and smallest, way in the further background of the painting. The first lamp light, there's a, street light. So that one there, I can see there's a little bit of a feature there on the side of the building. So I'll come over here like that and just put one of those features. That could be like a band around the building. And we have that there. That works out good too, because that line comes up just like this. So we have that line there. That looks good. And this up here kind of goes up on an angle like that. All right, that seems to be really, really good for this side. The lamps, a couple of the windows. Let's come over here and let's get maybe the French flag over here. That one's over here. Okay, now the French flag over here. Let's make it have a little bit of, like a little bit, and dynamics to it. Let's not make it kind of straight. It looks kind of straight out there. I don't know. That's probably the wind blowing it. Let's take a look. Just do this. There we go. A little bit more interesting. Like that. Even more interesting. Let's make it smaller. Like that. There we go. Kind of looks all like it's waving around, windy. Like that. Okay, good. And then maybe a few more in the distance over here. That. And then a little bit of trees over here. Like that. So we have some trees over there. And then some doorways here on the sides. Same thing here, maybe a few doorways, just there's a sidewalk here. Like that. Like that. So you have a couple doorways. And that's it. All right, we're good. Let's keep it at this point here. We haven't done, we've done maybe we've done 20% of the details in this painting. That's about it. At most 25% of the details. But that's enough that we can get a really fun composition going here, have a great time of it, and then, when we're done, we're going to be happy. We've gotten some really good practice in, drawing in, and then now we'll start creating our painting portion of this composition, and you'll see how much fun we're going to have doing the painting. And let's get started here. I'll put a couple more pencil lines in, a couple more vertical lines over here on this side too, just to keep me kind of on the right track when I go in here and paint. And that looks good. And there's a little bit of a shadow under there. Shadow under here. Okay, now we're going to just notice where our light's coming from. Our light is actually coming from up here, like this. We'll make our insignia for our light. Our light's coming up high in the sky across this here, and this is shadows. So the interior of this street scene here is kind of more in shadow. There's some good light in there, but you can kind of see how bright this area is in the photograph. So the most of the light is coming from the right-hand side this way, and it's really shining on this building in the distance. And over here too, on this side here, there's quite a bit of light, bright light on this part of the building on this side here. And over here, there is some light bouncing around, but you can kind of see it's a little bit darker in the shadow areas in the alleyway, or the street scene here in the sort of like that, kind of looks like a kind of like an interesting alleyway going through there. So that's really cool. Some shadows in there, and then more brighter light on the sky and the building in the distance, which will be fun. All right, so we've gotten everything completed now with our pencil drawing, all that we need. What we'll do is when we come back, I'll reset up my paper. I'll let you see how I'll set up my paper now so that I can put my palette in the video too as well. And we'll get started on that in just a second. All right, we are back and we're going to get ready to paint. But before I do that, I just wanted to share one more thing, everybody, that can really help out if you're just starting out in watercolors, or if you even if you've been like painting a year or 2 or 3, and you're sometimes trying to get ahead on your drawing and your painting and your compositions when you're creating works of art. I use acetate occasionally, and this can also help with. In the beginning of this video, I noticed, or you probably noticed, I'm using a lot of these space divisions with inches, referencing like the scale of 1 inch, and then going with ½ inch, quarter inch, 1/8 inch, a lot of those things. Some of you might not want to really bother with too much of that, like trying to figure out space divisions like I just, like I did at the beginning of the video. Another way you can do it too, just there's always different ways, different approaches to doing things. If you always wanted to, you can get acetate plastic, which is basically a very, very good hardy plastic that you can put over the top of your phone or your iPad or your device. And then you can basically break down your painting into, let's say, a smaller divisions of like cubes. So you could say, let me break down my painting in, let's do this. Let's say once, twice, 3, 4. So you could do like that. You could make your space divisions like maybe we're doing a vertical. We're using the portrait style paper, so we're using our paper up long ways, not going landscape fashion like this. So if you have that idea, you can take this. You can take some of this plastic I use, and then again you can make it into like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes. Divide your paper in half this way once, halfway this way, halfway this way, then go once more there and once more there. Then you sort of have equal distances of those 8 cubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you can take this. Then you can take a larger piece of acetate like so, and then do the same thing. Go across, halfway, halfway again, halfway again. Then what you can do is you can rest this on your phone, and then you can lightly pencil in on your paper. You can lightly pencil in on your paper that same pattern of what you just created here, like this. Then what you do is once you have this same grid on top of this paper lightly penciled in, then you can just look over here and say, okay, where is this wall over here compared to this? And you say, oh, it's halfway. And then you might have you'll see your pencil line there, and you say, okay, I got to go halfway right there. And that goes down the same thing there, and it goes actually all the way down the whole page, the same thing, basically, this wall. Then you can look over here and say, all right, where is this rooftop in the distance over here? Well, it's about a little bit above this line here, and you have this line across your lightly sketched in, and then okay, I got to go there, and you draw in there. So this will help you to kind of find all of your key shapes in your drawing, so that you can get that really good basic drawing done with everything in close to the same proximity as you have in your photograph or your subject matter. So that's one way to do it. And this works too if you're working from a book, photographs, online, pictures from online, whatever it is, you can use the same idea. So you're just basically taking this pattern of of using the Sharpie or pencil or pen, whatever it is, on top of, well, you got to use Sharpie on top of these plastic acetate, right? And then you just make that same pattern with light pencil lines on your paper before you start, which looks like that, but it's going to be light pencil lines on the paper. And then you just keep referencing back. You leave this on your photograph like that. And you just say, okay, well, I'm going to start drawing. All right, I need to be there halfway in that cube up here, halfway. And you just work it that way. Helps tremendously. Okay, so that's another way to do it. Options are always good with watercolors and drawing and painting in watercolor. So let's get started with resetting up our table here. So that's what I'll do. I'll lift this up. Okay, so what we're going to do is slide this over like this. We'll need some room. Like that. I think we're going to need more room. We're going to have to go this way. That looks good. And then we're going to get our praying oval 16 palette like that. And we don't have to have the whole palette. And we have plenty of space here. We can see what we're going to mix there, but we still have more room. Like that. We could do a little more that way. We could do that. Go this way like that. Then this way we have our whole palette. Like so. All right, good. All right, so now you can see we're setting up everything. And I'll just take some more tape just to make sure I have everything taped down well. And then we'll do the, we'll tape this like so. Make sure we get our light insignia there so we know sunlight's coming this way. And what else do we have to have here? That's it. Okay, we take our let's tape down our, let's do this, let's tape this down. So if you decide to make some videos yourself eventually, always a big tip is if you are going to create some videos, you have to have everything really kind of taped down somewhat so that nothing's moving all around and sliding around. Your table has to be pretty stable. My table's pretty stable right now. I need to probably, once I'm done doing my renovations in my studio here, I'll probably even make it a little more secure by using brackets to tie it, to actually secure it to the wall a little better. But it is pretty good. You can see it moves a little bit if I do that, if I move it. But it's still pretty solid. So keeping things solid, not shaking or anything, that's your key. One of the keys to really having good videos. Things can't be moving around and shaking around, that's for sure. And all right, so I have water in my water bucket. So I have a water bucket here. It's a canteen container I use. And I have a sponge dampened to check off some water on the brushes. As you know, we do that. You can also use tissues or paper towels to dry off your brush a little bit. Then what we do is we go in and we just spritz some water on our paints to start with. Just a little bit, not too much. Dampen up the paints, get them activated. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the darks first. So I'm going to start looking at the figures and the dark shapes here in the painting, and that's what we're going to do first. So the first thing I'll do is go in and grab some burnt umber and some black, and then some orange and red, maybe some blue and purple up here, same thing with some brown mixed in just to get some variation, blue, maybe some red in there too. I'm mixing up some variation, touch of black. Okay. And then some red and brown and blue, purple, blue and purple like that. Maybe some orange in there. All right, so we have some good darks. We're going to need some gold. This is going to be key. That yellow ochre kind of look to the painting, so we want to definitely be adding in that touch of burnt umber and lots of yellow like that. That's going to be really good. And then some blue too. We want to have warm and cool all the time in our paintings. Touch of brown in there just to gray that down a little bit. But now you can see we've mixed a nice bit of colors in our palette. Some really good darks we're going to start with, and we also have some of these lighter golden colors, which we want to have the yellow ochre kind of buildings are nice and beautifully kind of that yellowish buttery kind of look. We want to have that throughout the painting. That's going to be probably the predominant color throughout everything. But for the start with, we would just want to do the darks first so that we can kind of get those darks in our painting set up and going. So let's start out maybe some of these. Let's do the figures first here. So let's do some figures like that. And again, no big deal. Kind of that carrot shape, and we're doing pretty good. Now this figure has some blue jeans on. So we're going to do some of the blue jeans here, like that. And then a little bit of gold. And I'll do a little bit of orange and red for kind of the flesh tones here a little bit. Blend in some color. Then we have some and we're just going to keep working our colors, our darks here for our figures, kind of like carrot shapes. And we blend them together. Kind of looks good when the figures are blended together a little bit. And we have a figure down at the end of the street here. I tend to do the figures darker anyway. I think it looks better with this scene. And then some darker darks here. There's some doorways. Okay. Okay, some darker darks there. A little bit of yellow ochre kind of color there. Okay, so now you see we're doing the darks. We're getting those darks in. That's really important. I'm kind of putting in where I see some shadows. And then maybe some more. Maybe there'll be some shapes over here that you might just put in really, really lightly. Nothing too big of a deal. Just a little bit of some color. If you want. And there are some definitely some more darks over here. So let's get those in here. There's some. And then that yellow ochre color. What I'm trying to do is sort of get the feel for what darks are here, and this is definitely dark over here. Gets a little bit lighter up here, but it's a little bit darker down here. So you see, I'm just kind of the sidewalk's a little bit lighter. Okay, looks good. We're sort of getting there. A little bit more yellow up here, lemony yellow. That's the real, kind of like the sunlight up top on the buildings. The tops of the buildings here are getting more sunlight, catching more of that sunlit feel, so that's why you can add a little more of that bright yellow up here. And then down here you keep it more, the yellows and the golds, kind of more muted, more grayish kind of color. And I just kind of scrub along here. No big deal. Sometimes it's fun just to have the brush and just scrub, have some fun. This is kind of more light over here. Like that. I think this is kind of bright over here in the photograph, so I'm going to leave this bright over here. We'll come back and add some darks to the windows. But that looks pretty good. Now we're going to do some of that slate blue, which I'm just going to add a little bit of this. And that looks pretty good, so no need to reinvent the wheel. Kind of looks like a Prussian blue. That looks really good. Let me get that in first, and then I'll add a little bit there. So some of it's a little brighter. Let me do that. There we go. Okay, and that's pretty bright on the faces of these dormers over here, so we're going to leave those like that. And that's like so. There we go. So we're just moving around colors here. And I wouldn't go back in there. Once you put a wash on, leave it. Don't touch it until it's 100% dry for the most part. I think that's the best bet to do. So we're going to leave this over here, not really do anything to it. The figures are kind of dry now, but we're going to let those go for now. We have the roof done. Let's leave everything else there. We'll come back and do the chimneys and the windows. We can do these windows here. So let's go in. We'll get some shadow color. I see some shadow under the windows there. Quickly I put them in. Not too fancy. Then I noticed these windows here. Wow, there's a lot of details to those. If you have a small, let me see if I have one. This happens to be a very, I've had this for like 15 years or longer. I can't remember when I got this, but this is a long time ago. But it's actually a very small, almost like a flat brush, a small flat detail brush, flat brush. So you can see how small that is. That's perfect for these windows. We have tiny bits of window panes in these windows. So let's do those. Up top you don't see them too much, but here you start to see them. So let's do that. Let's just do some. And I wouldn't get too crazy with them. Don't worry about it. Try to stay within your rectangles. And I think if you just get a little bit like that, a little indication of the window panes, you should be fine. Same down here. They're pretty dark, actually. And if you smudge a few spots, don't worry about it. Again, this is a composition. That. Just for some indications, I didn't see them up here, but let's put them up here too, a few. It seems like the light is really bright up here, so it almost like blocks out the sunlight's really bright at the top of the building up here. You can barely see the window panes. So that's why I'm just going to make them very light, like that. There's a little bit of windows up here, panes of windows. And as long as you have some reflections or some shapes that look pretty good, that should be fine. That looks good. We'll go back to our round brush. Okay, that's the that's some of the flowers and foliage along the windowsills. put a couple more there. Like that. All right, you can kind of see we're really developing everything really nicely. Darks first. We got our darks in, dark window panes of glass, dark bushes, the foliage along the windowsills, flower pots, and the things like that along the windows. We're going to do some more darks, but right now let's take a quick break. We'll come back and then we'll start putting in some of the shadows on this side over here. And then once we get done with the shadows on this side of the building, and maybe a little bit of shadowing and washes in the street area, I think we'll be almost completed. We'll just have to do a little sky wash and maybe some chimneys and lights. We'll do some of the really cool, super fine details of the light fixtures. We're going to do this beautiful French flag here. We'll do some of this greenery. There's a tree over here toward the end of the street. And again, some chimneys, some details to those, some nice color on there, some of that beautiful buttery gold color. All these buildings have that beautiful stone look to them with the buttery colors, the golds. And we'll get started in just a few minutes with some of the next washes we're going to work on. But we'll take a break for now, just because we need to kind of regroup a little bit, take some time to relax for about 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll come back. All right, let's get back started. And again, we're going to do some more of that yellow ochre color. Let's mix some of that up again, mix up a little more. So if you need more paint, you just kind of get in there and get some more of that paint mixed up in your wells there. So we're doing that now. And then we're going to add some more of that blue, touch of brown in there, kind of gray down that blue a little bit. So we'll have some, if you want to use a larger flat brush or something to get some of these washes, and you can do that too as well. And this is kind of dark in here. And I like to put in a little bit of blue and mix that in with the gold so that it's warm and cool paint colors and not just one color. So that would be when you're creating your paintings, I would try to always aim for warm and cool colors, mixing them always together. So I'm just going to get some of that there. So now that I have that there, which is predominantly the yellow golden color, I will add a little blue to that, maybe in a few spots, maybe where there's some vertical lines there. So that's maybe a good spot to put in some darker washes where you see those vertical lines. You can just maybe put in a couple of vertical bits of color. I will go in now and get some green. Mix up that green right over here in a spot that I have open that I can kind of use. There we go. And some brown to gray that green down just a touch. Make it kind of like a yellow, olivey green. Okay, and it's kind of a bright green too, so we could even go in and do some of that. I'll get that green a little bit pretty good, so nice and moist, a little bit of extra water in there, not too much, but, and then this way I can just do this, I can kind of splash on that, some of that green, dry off my brush a little bit, and then I can just move around that splashy effect there. Like that. There's a flag there, so I'm going to have that French flag over here in the distance. We'll get that in too. And if you can kind of see there, we have a nice bit of green foliage there. Like that. Okay, so we have, kind of goes across there like so. Like that. Okay, we're just doing some details that we see in the photograph, having fun. We'll continue on with our ochre washes over here. And I think we can just basically continue on with this ochre wash all the way up through here. I don't think there's going to be anything that really... If we see some grayish roof colors, I do see some of those. You can always put them in once we're done with these washes here. And then maybe a scrubby look over here like so, not to be so accurate. Let's just get some, scrub some paint on there. And then toward the bottom I'll be a little more careful where I want to make that sidewalk area. I'll blot up with a tissue. Maybe some areas I think that are lighter over here. There's kind of, it's lighter over here. Then it gets darker down in this way here. So let's leave that light, a little bit lighter. And what else do we have? Okay. Then we said next, let's get some of that street color in. Let's take some of the yellow ochre color. Yellow, brown, yellow, brown. Then we're going to add some blue to that. And that should give us a good color for the street color. Maybe a little blue in there. That looks pretty good. Let's try that. And what I like to do is mix it around a little bit. And you always remember, you have those figures have to be 100% dry when you do your street colors. So you would never try to go in there and do the street color, like the color of the pavement or the cobblestones pavement. You would never try to go in there and do that when your figures are still drying. You want to make sure those figures are 100% dry. That's why we take breaks too. That's why I take breaks. You'll always hear me say I'm taking a break because it does help. A lot of times when you take breaks, things dry for you, and then when you go back in and you start working again, it helps a lot. We'll touch up these figures again too, I think. What do you think? Should we touch up those figures a little bit, or do those look pretty good? Okay, like that. And I'll try to blend that in like that. I'll just take some damp water and try to blend in that street color with a damp brush and a little bit of water. I'll just try to blend it out into the sidewalk area, so that there's not too much of a big difference in color and tonal value. And then what we can do is we can always go back in and add a little more dark paint for the curb line. And that might be just enough to kind of have it look finished and look good. Okay, so there we have it. We have the street color in. We will put in some, now's the point where I will start to make a new spot for myself for colors. So I'm going to take a paper towel, dampen the paper towel in my water bucket, and I'll get a new area going here. Important to clean the palette. Basically, I keep working my colors on my palette until I run out of spaces, and then I start to clean up a little bit and have it, you know, so now I have a couple new areas to start mixing colors again without having things mixed too much together. Okay, so now let's take our, I'm going to use a, I'm going to clean my, empty my water bucket too. It's kind of, you can kind of see the water's getting muddy there. So I'll empty that out and I'll add some fresh clean water. It's good to change your water 2 or 3 times as you're painting or more. And what I'll do is maybe I'll use this, well, let's just stick with our one brush. We've been using this Simply Simmons number 9. Let's just stick with the one brush. I think we can do the whole painting with this one brush. And then we did use this really, really fine, almost like it's a square brush or a flat brush. We use this really, really fine brush to put in some of these small, extremely small rectangles in there. That's always helpful to have that. But what we wanted to do is take, again, some touch of brown and a touch of gold, touch of orange, a little more bit of yellow, and then we're just going to go with a super light wash, mostly water, like this. But definitely more yellow than brown, so you want to have it a little bit more of a like lemony yellow versus the yellow ochre kind of look. And we just want to add a little bit of that to this wall here on this building just to make it look like it's really bright with lots of sunlight in there. So you can add some of that. Damp water. And then as we move down closer to the ground level, it gets a little bit darker, the tone. And another thing we have to be careful of is not to add too much water by the figures here so that they get reactivated and start becoming dissolving like the figures themselves. So I usually get some paint on there and then lift up like that. We can always go in later and touch up a little more yellow in there if we have to. We could also take some of that yellow and splash a little bit, just to give like that feeling of stone. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we have done a lot so far. This is kind of a light looking painting, you know, lots of feeling of light here. I'm not going with super dark washes. I'm kind of keeping things light. I'm hoping that you'll try this type of painting over and over again, maybe more, you know, another couple of times maybe. And this way you can adjust things. You can make things a little darker, a little lighter. But I think this is looking pretty light. I've made it light. And these Prang Oval 16 colors are pretty nice too. They really, you can paint a really light kind of looking painting, like a very bright looking painting with these. Kind of shows off the pencil lines. You could do this with pen. You could do this with pen actually. Pen and ink and wash. You could do this painting in ink and wash, pen, darker pencil lines maybe, crayons. You could do anything really. What I'll do is I'm going to do the blue for the flag. like that. Okay, that's white. And then some red. We'll do red for the other part of the flag. And you can always add in a little bit of wash to mellow out the colors a little bit. And there's another French flag here in the distance, so we'll just keep that smaller. We'll make our flag smaller there like that. That looks pretty good. And then you can kind of see we've had lots of fun doing this painting. And again, you can always I dry off a little bit of that paint on a paper towel or tissue. We'll get in some of these details here. Let's do a couple of the lamps here. So again, it's up to you. I try to do the details you want, so you might want to do other details in the painting. Like that. And you want to go very, very lightly. If you want to get lighter pencil lines, lighter paint lines, you just dry your brush off a little more. You could even do these with a little bit of pen. As the details get further in the distance, you can get a pen as long as your paper is dry. As long as your paper is dry, you can use a nice Sharpie pen, a small Sharpie pen, fine point. Like that. You could even use those for the flags here, so we'll do that. Like that. And then maybe we'll go up and we'll do some chimney pots on top here, so I'll dry off my brush a little bit. We'll just do a couple of those up there, like so. We can do some more shadowing. These are all darks here too as well, the shadows under these two as well. So you pick out the areas you want to kind of detail. So I'll mix in warm and cool with the shadows. A little bit of blue mixed in with the brown and the orange and the reds. Kind of get that nice Some more shadows over here. Some pretty dark shadows under here, like that. Like that. A couple under here. Okay. And you'll see I'm just kind of adding in those dark shadows here and there that I see. Like that. And there's a couple more shadows here, like so. And we can do a couple light and I think that's about it. Let's do a little bit of sky color. Why not? There we go. I'll wet the sky a little bit up here with a little bit of with a little bit of water, some fresh, clean water. Like that. And then let's add some blue. Looks good. We'll keep it light, not too dark. Let's kind of keep this light. There we go. And we'll just work some of that color down there. And then carefully with a damp brush, just kind of blend it on down. Keep it very, very, just a damp brush now at this point down here. We don't want to start smudging and going into, probably better off letting all of this stuff dry here that we just did, all these shadows under the cornices and all this. Probably better off to let that dry 100% before you go back in to do the sky. But, you know, sometimes we like to do the sky and just have a little bit of mixtures of colors there. A little bit of the gold. Like that. A little bit of the blue again. Make it a little bit of an interesting looking sky, and then just kind of fade it down into this. But I would go really, really carefully. You can always wait. I would wait, or very carefully with a damp brush go around these areas here. There we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this painting. It's a lot of fun. Yes, it takes some time doing a painting like this. There's a lot of details to it, but it's really fun. It's rewarding. At the end of it, you're going to be happy that you went through the whole process of creating all the details that we did. I'm going to add just a little bit of shadow there along this building. Like that. Blot up a little bit. But I think you're really going to be, again, happy that you took the time to go through each of the steps as we went to get to this point where you have the finished painting complete. We can now take this and then we can put a mat over the top and see how it looks. So that might be something like that. All right. Thanks again for watching. I hope everyone is having a great time with their watercolors. I know many of you are just having a great time, enjoying it, doing really well. We'll be back again soon to do another painting within the next couple days or so. We're going to be painting again, drawing again together. And I always mention, too, if you haven't subscribed, if you like this channel, On the right-hand side below, there's the subscribe button. This way you don't lose track of what we're doing. We're always creating, again, new paintings, and we're doing everything you can imagine. We're doing street scenes like this, flower paintings, seascapes, beautiful ocean scenes, boat scenes. We're doing landscapes with beautiful trees and mountains, and we're doing figure painting too as well, and portraits. So we do everything here on this channel, everything watercolor, drawing and painting in watercolor. We cover all the methods and techniques you need to know week after week, month after month, and year after year, so you're getting all the basics all the time, and that eventually will lead to really, really good paintings. You'll be able to create excellent paintings by just following along each week as you go, and you'll make progress. And if you can practice a little bit more extra in your off time when you're not watching the videos, you're going to make much more progress doing that as well too. So always remember, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And we always know that every hour you put in, you're an hour more successful in your watercolors. So if you put in an extra hour this week, you're going to have a better painting the next time. You spend 3 or 4 hours extra, that next painting you're going to do is going to look better because you put more time in and you kind of have more mastery over the drawing and painting of your watercolor. So always remember, have fun, enjoy the watercolor process, enjoy the journey. And again, we'll see you very soon.